What's cracking, everyone? My name is Ryan, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Meze Liric. Now, this is a planar magnetic closed-back headphone from Meze Audio. It retails in at $2,000, and I want to send a big thank you out to Meze Audio for lending this out in exchange for my review. All thoughts and opinions, as usual, are of my own. So the Meze Liric was released in early 2022, and at the time marked the third time that Meze Audio and Monaro Isodynamics had combined in order to create a headphone. Now, this is an isodynamic hybrid array driver. It's actually the third time they've used this driver. They used it on the Meze Elite and the Meze Imperium, but this is a scaled down version of the driver that they wanted to use for the Liric. Now, something else they added to the Liric was their own Phase X system. And the Phase X system is supposed to assist with spatial imaging. Now, if you've listened to closed-back headphones such as I have, you'll know that a lot of closed-back headphones can suffer from stage space and imaging and that kind of thing. Well, this is supposed to assist with that, which we will talk about when we get into sound. Now, one other thing I want to add here is that every driver is handmade and hand-tested at the Monaro facility in Ukraine. And, just something I wanted to mention because I really appreciate that attention to detail that Meze puts into their headphones. Now, the driver itself, it's very low distortion, it's very lightweight, and it's very easy to drive at just 30 ohms of impedance and 100 dB per milliwatt of sensitivity. Now, with all that being said, let's take a look at the build and comfort of the headphone. All right, so taking a look at the Liric, the first thing I will tell you is that this is a magnesium skeleton that they have used on the headphone. And on the magnesium here is a gloss matte spatters texture that they put on this. It actually kind of makes it look wet when you first see it, but then you feel that nice kind of rough texture. Reminds you of like a camera housing or something like that. It's actually what they've been going for here anyway. And it just gives it a nice durable feel. Now, I didn't want to test the theory, but I feel like these things could take a little bit of a beating because of how they're made. And then looking at the rods here, these are aluminum rods. Now, this is a metallic copper finish on the rods, and we're also going to see a metallic copper finish on the cups, which I'll get to in a second here. Now, the headband is all leather on the top, and then underneath there is a cross shape into the padding, and this is purposeful. The cross shape is actually to assist with airflow on your head. I mean, again, this is just a nod for myself to Meze Audio to say thank you, because other companies need to take note and really put this much thought into the comfort and build like Meze does with their headphones. But anyways, moving on. The cups themselves, they're an ovoid shaped pattern cup. It is a black leather finish on the cup, and this is such a smooth to the touch feel. It's not something you really appreciate until you hold one of these in your hands and you just get that feel on there. It's kind of a nod to the Focal Radiance on how that is. And that's kind of what it reminds me of. This is kind of that luxury sports car feeling. And in fact, kind of reminds me of like sitting down in a nice, very soft, cushiony, luxury sports car in the seat. Except I wouldn't, because I sweat easy, and that's gross. You didn't really need to know that. And then on the outside of the cup, as I said, you see this little hole here. That's that copper. And what this does is this actually assists with airflow in the headphone for not getting so hot, but also for the sound quality and the spaciousness of this. This is actually their pressure equalization system that they developed with this. Just very unique for this headphone. The pads, now these are glued on pads. So if you want to replace these, Meze recommends you reach out to them and they'll talk about a kit they can send you, because like I said, they're glued on, but these are super soft leather pads and they are so comfortable. The headphone is 390 grams, but when you put it on your head, it adjusts actually not very easy, which is great because it stays in a place. But once you get the adjustment down, it's evenly weighted on my head. It's comfortable. It can get a little bit on the warm side during the summer months, but nothing like the Focal Radiance, again, like I said, and some other closebacks I have listened to. And they isolate really well because it is solid leather around the pads and just so well thought out with the comfort and the build of the Meze Liric. But now, let's talk about sound. All right, so starting with the bass first, The Meze Liric has a very low, deep, just seismic bass to it. And it is one, as I've said with that, that's just something that you feel more than you hear. And it's beautiful. It's clean and it's that luxurious sound. I would call it more buttery than I would syrupy because I don't feel like it's that extra thickness to it. It's not anything that's got a lot of added texture. I don't feel like it's boomy at all. It doesn't bloat. It doesn't, vibrate on the cups or anything crazy like that. It's not boxy, so it's not closed in. Again, something like, the Focal Radiance can be that is so boomy. It's not that. Again, more felt. One track example I want to give you guys is called Blissed Memories by R. Roxymore. The reason why I bring up this digitized track, as some of you roll your eyes at me, is that the bass at the beginning of this is just that low alter extension bass that you're going to feel. And if you have a headphone such as the Lyric, it's going to just instantly bring you in and make you listen to that track. And if you don't have that out of your bass, it's a little bit weak and probably one you're just going to skip and move on to the next. And that's the reason why I brought that one up, is because it just starts immediately with that bass. And it is just, again, luxurious and beautiful on the bass. A little bit of a different story here with the mid-range, in that the mid-range is a little laid back. And maybe I shouldn't even say a little, because it is just laid back. That's the way I hear it. Now, you can get some really good vocals out of the mid-range of the Lyric, but they're never going to be anything that's vocal forward or mid forward. It's not that type of presentation. I think the presence region of the upper mid-range, it's there enough. It's just, again, laid back. And what I think is going on here, and kind of happened with the bass and with the mid-range and does with the treble as well, is because they have made that, SpaceX system I referenced to, it's expansive on the Lyric. So with that wider stage, you're not going to feel as impactful sometimes in the dynamic nature of the mid-range. And I definitely noticed that. When I listen to rock music, anything with drums that should have a lot of snap and just extra impact and punch and slam and things like that, it's a little bit lacking. It's not anything lacking like the AN2 Noir was. That was just kind of dead, to be honest, in dynamics. No, this is kind of in between that and a Focal, right? So, it's not going to be that huge impact nature. So if you like your rock and roll music and things, just know you're not going to get all of that energy coming out of the mid-range, but it's still, like I said, just represents it very well. There's excellent details there. I think the timbre's spot on there. I think there's good imaging in the mid-range there as well. It's just laid back. Circling back to that one and saying it again, as I like to repeat myself at times. All right, so now let's go ahead and talk about treble. Right, and so for this, I do want to give you a couple of different track examples. And so the first one I would like to give to you is Kiss of Death by Tinsley Ellis. Now, this is more of a bluesy type track. It is a blues track. It's got the guitar and everything going on in this. And to me, the treble on the Lyric is very sweet, but also textured as well. And it's interesting because at times I feel like it hits just that point and that wall of sibilance where it would be, but it never goes over the edge of that. So it's not edgy on the treble. It just gets right there. It's almost a little bit smooth in that nature. Again, I think the spaciousness of this headphone really helps with the treble so that it never gets that piercing brightness that you can sometimes get. Now, if there's tracks that are mixed that way, it's going to pick up some of that in the Lyric, but it's not going to exaggerate that in any means when I've heard the treble. And that track was a beautiful example because there's a lot of solo guitar moments where, those really, really high moments of plucking the guitar and just, some of the runs and things they do that, if you had a headphone that was bright, it would probably be too harsh for you. And it never got that way on the Lyric. Now, there is another track that I want to bring up as well, and that is Regan by Florian Crystal and the Modern String Quintet. Now, for you classical fans out there, hopefully you guys know what I'm talking about. I'm not somebody that typically listens to classical music, but I do try to sample it in my headphone listenings because it's very important to get all the genres, especially one that has so many instruments going on. So one thing I can tell you, there's lots of detail going on with the Lyric. Make no mistake of that. There's good instrument separation as well for a closeback. And again, it's just got that sweet smoothness to it in the strings. But what I find unique on the Lyric that I haven't really heard in other headphones is, the best way I don't know how to describe it, it's almost like a tickle in your ear, and not like someone's licking on your earlobe, but like a tickle in your ear, right? I mean, it's like just a feeling that you get in the treble, kind of like the feeling you get in that sub bass. And it's cool, man. It was just a unique experience, and, you know, just different, fun, engaging. You know, I listened to this track all the way through. Like I said, not a classical fan, but I loved how that sounded on this headphone, and listening to all the string arrangements and just, you know, hearing every note do that was amazing. And there was plenty of space to it. I mean, this definitely does not sound like a closed back headphone. This actually reminds me so much of my closed back Atrium. Of course, the closed back Atrium is a dynamic driver, so there's many differences in the impact nature and things between the two, but they both sound more open than they do with a closed back headphone typically would sound. Now, I will definitely give the nod to the Lyric in that I think the Lyric is even wider than the closed back Atrium. I mean, they did a fantastic job of making this sound wider, be wider, I should say, than, you know, what a closed back typically would be. And so, as you can imagine, that lends really well to gaming. I've gamed plenty on this headphone. Diablo 4, Remnant 2, both excellent games, by the way, if you want to check them out. And there's lots of space and details, and imaging is spot on, and it is just a very cool experience to listen on the Lyrics. $2,000 closed back headphone. You're probably not buying this to game on, but you could. And if you do game like I do and listen to music like I do, yeah, this is actually a recommendation for that. So lastly, I do want to quickly touch on sources, because, you know, I do think that's important to at least mention that. Being a planar magnetic headphone, this is actually considered a more portable headphone from Meze Audio. They give you a nice case to come with this. They give you a nice cable, 2 sets of cables actually, that comes with this headphone, because they want you to be able to take this, pick it up on the go with you, and you can definitely do that. So I drove this on my IFI Go bar, my Cayenne RU7, off my laptop, off my phone with just a simple dongle, and then on my desktop solutions. Now, I will definitely say, on my desktop solution, which is my ADI2 DAC from my DAC, going into my either Cayenne IHA6 or my Liquid Platinum, I love those the most, just because of the details that they can provide compared to a portable solution. But make no mistake, portable solutions still sounded excellent on this headphone. So if you have something like that, even like a shit Magni, you're going to be perfectly fine with the Meze Lyric, and they did a great job of that. So those are my thoughts on the Meze Lyric. Does it make my recommendation list? I got to tell you, if I didn't already own the Atrium closed that I love so much, this would make the list, just because I feel like there's a lot of similarities between the two, and I love my Atrium closed. But I also love this headphone. So there you go. All right, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If so, please smash that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel, because, well, I've got another headphone coming up very soon that I'm going to talk to you guys about. Happens to be in this room right now. All right, I thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.